the game. It's a rich thing. It's not a game, it's a rich thing. game. It's a rich thing.
gangs to sell drugs across the country. How young are these young people getting involved?
The typical age for us at the moment is about 14, 15. We've seen young people as young as 12 getting involved in this, and anecdotally we've heard of younger ones. So it does start very young. We need to be looking at the end of primary school to identify some of the children who are going to be at risk from this stuff. They might not be deeply involved in it at that age, but quite often the initial concerns are showing. As I say, this does not just start overnight. Somebody doesn't start transporting Class A drugs 1 minute and prior to that they were doing fine at school. There's a gradual slip into this.
And what are the signs to look out for?
Sadly, it's the usual signs that we associate with teenagers. So different behaviours, different friendship groups, unexplained gifts are a really big one for parents to look out for. The other one is cheap telephones, cheap mobile phones. No self-respecting child wants to be seen with an old Nokia. So if they are carrying one, that's a real cause for concern, because those are the phones that do the business on these drug lines.
And how easy is it to sort of get a child out of those kind of circles? Because like you say at the beginning, and we see this so clearly in Annabelle's podcast series, it starts off with chats and gifts, and slowly that some children are drawn in. How can you draw them back out?
Absolutely, it's extremely difficult, and the sooner it starts, the better. And one of the big problems we have is because Class A drug dealing is illegal, and it's not going to change, I don't think, people are very anxious about coming forward to schools, to social services, to the police, to charities, because they don't want, no parent wants to put their child into trouble with the police. So often people don't let us know until it's too late, and sometimes, sadly, the response from the services isn't great either, as was described just now. So if we're able to get in quite early, our workers are very experienced. A lot of them have personal experience of these issues. They can coach a young person in how to gently extract themselves from this. But that's only possible in the earlier stages. If somebody's done a few drug runs, perhaps been arrested by the police, lost £300 worth of Class A drugs, they have a debt to that drug gang. And that drug gang will expect them to work that debt off. So sometimes we have situations where the risks are so high we have to physically relocate whole families, because the threat doesn't just extend to the young person who owes them money. It could be, their sister, their mum, their relative who gets assaulted instead. So it's exceedingly dangerous. And I think agencies out there are getting a better understanding of it now and realising how serious it is, but it's taken quite a while, and we're certainly not there yet in terms of how we respond to this stuff.
Also, the difficulty in getting evidence against the criminals who are involving the children in the first place, that's another whole issue. Thank you so much for joining us, Evan Jones, Head of Community Services at St Giles Trust. Do text us if you have any knowledge of county lines, any experience, 85058. What more can be done to help? First of all, now it's time for the news.
On digital, BBC Sounds, smart speaker and online.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
Told that a white supremacist who killed 51 people at 2 mosques last year planned to target a third. Survivors of the attacks in Christchurch and relatives of those who died have been given emotional statements at Brenton Tarrant's sentencing hearing. The Education Minister, Nick Gibb, has echoed calls from Boris Johnson for all parents in England to send their children back to school next week. Mr Gibb said the consequences of pupils continuing to miss lessons outweighed the very small risk of them catching coronavirus. Schools in Northern Ireland have reopened today. The owner of Sports Direct, Mike Ashley, has bought a number of gyms and sports shops from the company founded by his longtime critic Dave Whelan. Mr Ashley's Frasers Group is paying £37 million for parts of the DW Sports chain. It went into administration earlier this month, putting 1,700 jobs at risk. And hotels in Portugal have reported a big rise in bookings since the UK government announced that people could travel to the country without having to quarantine on their return. The Portuguese Hotels Association says reservations in the Algarve alone increased by 13% in the 3 days after the change was confirmed last Thursday. As the news, Chris Latcham's got the sport.
Thank you, Tom. They always talk about the nervous 90s in cricket. What about the fraught 590s? It seems James Anderson's England teammates are a little tense in his pursuit of 600 Test wickets. Henry Moran is in Southampton.
Yes, Pakistan 21 without loss, and James Anderson should be on to 599 Test wickets. Jos Buttler-Ling and wicket-keeper dropping a chance of Shan Masood when on 3 really should have been taken. Anderson, you can understand why, is a little frustrated. And here's a thing that I wasn't expecting this morning, Chris. Paul Collingwood, who once, of course, played for England in Ashes series in 2005 and long England career, but last played in 2011. Well, he's on the far side of the ground at the moment, wearing Rory Burns' shirt, and it looks like he might be about to come onto field. He was a great fielder, so possibly James Anderson will be hoping that if the chance comes his way, he might be able to hang on. Pakistan 21 without loss.
Henry, 12:30, I want Andy Zoltzman telling us whether or not that has ever happened in an England Test match. You can listen to TMS on Sports Extra right now. I actually just saw a tweet from the Crick Viz analyst.
Its plan is to offer these jobs initially to temporary workers who are already in their workforce before opening up recruitment. But it really reflects the change in
of that. Bolu Babalola is the author of Love in Colour, Mythical Tales from Around the World Retold. And she joins me now. Hello.
Hi. Lovely to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you with us. First of all, I love the term rom-commissaire. Please expand.
So I have a rather large online Twitter presence, and with that, I always talk about rom-coms and my love of rom-coms, and whatever you're feeling, whatever you're in the mood for, whenever you need to pick me up, I will probably have just the right rom-com for your mood. And I can also just dissect different themes in rom-coms, the in-depth analysis of each character.
In-depth analysis. That's the first I've heard that on a rom-com. I want to ask you just a bit more about your dissections in a minute, but I just wonder whether some people listening to us right now have heard rom-com and are just like, oh God, I'm not listening to this, not interested. There is a tendency by some to sort of dismiss rom-coms as a genre and sort of kind of look down their nose at them, isn't there?
There is, and like you just said, in-depth analysis is not often that you hear that when it comes to rom-coms, which I think is also rooted in society's misogyny, because rom-coms, because they're focused on love and romance, obviously, there's a thought that because that means they're inherently femme and soft and weak and not worthy of intellectual vigor. But when you look at someone like Nancy Myers and all these intelligent rom-coms that are so full of warmth and sweetness, it's really hard actually to write something that's so emotionally powerful, but also has the ability to make you laugh and to make you feel and to move you. And it takes a really sharp mind to be able to do that. And also love is an inherently vigorous thing as well. So I think it's just like silly to dismiss it out of hand.
Silly to dismiss it as silly. So what... You love rom-coms, but, it's not a book full of rom-coms, this one, by any means, no. and nor is it all sort of, and I'm saying in inverted commas, sort of silly, lovey-dovey female characters. There's depth, there's strength in here. What was the inspiration for this book?
It's so strange because people ask me that, but it's like my life is how I see love and romance. It wasn't something that I was like, okay, so I need to make these characters strong and I want to center the women. That was always going to happen naturally, because I think I love romance, but obviously in a lot of the mainstream rom-coms, love is something that happens to them rather than something that the woman actively chooses. And I really wanted the women to be active participants in their romance and to also show them as really strong within their softness, especially because obviously most of the women in the stories are black. And I really wanted them to, and we never see black women, you'll hardly see black women in love in mainstream or experiencing romance or being cherished. And it's always they have to be really strong and they have to just put that to the side. And I really wanted to show them being these amazing women who have these really strong senses of self, but also have romance on top of it, so just kind of like an extra to their lives as alongside what they already have going on for themselves.
Well, you're very critical, actually, of the absence of black women at the centre of Hollywood rom-coms, for example. But how easy was it to modernise the stories from folklore, mythology, from all around the world, make it sort of focus particularly around women of colour and still keep the important parts of the originals? That's quite a juggle.
Well, Yeah, it was a challenge because the thing is, all fairy tales, like even the European ones, Brothers Grimm, like Little Mermaid, she turns into foam at the end of it because she can't get with the prince. They're all inherently misogynistic. A lot of them are really moralistic, and it's always about, you know, women always have to defer to the man, and women always have to listen to their parents about what they want for their lives. And so I had to go into these cultures, beautiful cultures and really rich cultures, then distill the romance from whatever, because a lot of them weren't romance stories on their own. They're maybe love stories within, stories about creation and origin and war. So distilling that. And then once I did that, you know, seeing this patriarchy and misogyny and just being able to go, okay, so I don't like this, going to remove that, but also what do I love about the story? What do I love about this culture? And just basically amplifying that, discovering who my characters were within that world. And once I discovered who my characters were, it kind of was easy.
Okay, so just to give people listening a taster and to encourage them to dip into your book, it's a really global account of love. How did you choose which stories? Like, just give us a quick trip around the world of your favourite characters.
I love all of them, but like, I guess I'm Nigerian, I'm Yoruba, so I really love Oshun. Oshun is an ocean goddess, a river goddess rather, and I love her character because she's really, and it's the first story in the book, and I really love her because she's a goddess and she's used to being seen and she's used to being kind of revered and she's used to being hyper visible, but she never really felt seen. And I feel like a lot of black women in mainstream feel that we're so hyper visible. We have all these ideas posited onto us and positioned onto us. Black women are angry, black women are aggressive, and nobody ever really sees us as who we are inside. And so with her, I was able to use her to represent that. But also, I really like her because she's not nice. She is really strong-minded. She's really sharp. She's a little bit petty, and I love that about her because, you know, sometimes in love things can get a little bit petty, but she's also unequivocally herself. So yeah, she's one of my favorite characters.
You have something against nice as a description, don't you? I've read that about you. Why is that?
Because I just think it's meaningless. I think being kind and being good and being generous, those are really distinct things with integrity in and of themselves. But niceness is really dependent on how somebody perceives you. And so if it's dependent on how somebody perceives you, what does that mean? Because nice to someone as person A is not necessarily nice to some person B. So you need to be strong within yourself and know that you're kind within yourself and good within yourself. Because nice is just dependent on whoever's calling you nice, really. It has no integrity.
Okay. You often say that you're a big believer in the beauty and the beast. So you do have you have women who, you know, they show a lot of facets of their characters. They're not sort of flat characters. But it's not just mythology and stories of the past that you've updated, not just classics. You've also got rules for the social media age, don't you, and Tiara's top tips?
Yeah, I mean, those are very tongue-in-cheek, but they were just like a nod to our current climate, because Tiara's top tips was really fun to me because, you know, it's really, a lot of the other stories are in mystical, different worlds, but Tiara's top tip is in actually a different world. It's in the online world, and it's really fun to explore that as somebody who's quite prolific on Twitter, to be able to distill these tongue-in-cheek rules for social media. And also, that story also talks about how social media can amplify all our anxieties within romance. You know, you see a picture of your loved one or the person that you fancy with another person, and you're like, what's going on here? And it completely amplifies what could be completely innocent.
We were talking even just about punctuation in social media, how that can be misinterpreted. Never mind photos. I cannot let you go today without asking you about your master's degree. I know you get asked this about so often, but you wrote your thesis on Beyoncé's Lemonade. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Lemonade was the starting point, but it was about how black women redefined their identities through musical performance. Because I said that redefining the identities, because like I said earlier, a lot of our identities are positioned onto us. Black women are meant to be strong, black women are hypersexual, black women are aggressive. We have all these stereotypes positioned onto us, and it was about how black women resisted against these externally derived identities that were born from racism, and used musical performance so Lemonade, obviously, she's being super sexual, but in but in a really self-possessed way, and through her lyrics as well. And then I used Lemonade to then go back through time, not just through her discography, but also through artists such as Billie Holiday and Bessie Smith, and even as other contemporary artists like Missy Elliott, and how these are women who have defined who they are and who black women are, and gave freedom to black women through their videos and through their music, and rebelled against stereotypes and rebelled against racism through their art.
Well, your passion for your work and your subject is really infectious. Bolu Papalola, thank you so much for joining us, and do have a look at Bolu's book, Love in Colour, Mythical Tales from Around the World Retold. Good luck to you, and thank you for joining us.
Having me.
And we head back now to Southampton, where Henry's waiting for us and he's watching for us day 4 of the third test between England and Pakistan. Henry.
And Pakistan 32 without loss. This has been a good start from them following on. They still trail by 278 runs, and we're going to have to wait a little bit longer for James Anderson to try and reach that 600 mark in Test match cricket with wickets taken. He's gone off. He bowled well in the morning session, but a drop catch from Jos Buttler prevented him taking his 599th Test wicket. He'll have to wait, as we all will, just a little bit longer. 32 without loss, with Chris Wokes and Jofra Archer bowling for England.
Thanks very much, Henry. Now, there are concerns that waiting lists for dentists could take months to clear after 10 million appointments were delayed because of the coronavirus pandemic. As we know, of course, so much was put on hold, including cancer treatments, but dentist appointments too. Whilst most surgeries opened last month, strict infection control measures mean fewer patients are being seen. Mick Armstrong is the chair of the British Dental Association, and he's also a general dental practitioner. Thanks for joining us, Mick.
Morning.
So, about how many people have missed out on dental treatments as a result of the lockdown, and people just sort of worrying about being in close contact with people, like sitting at a dentist chair?
Well, Katya, it's millions, really. We do about 10 million courses of treatment normally every 3 months. So, 3 million treatments, course of treatment a month. Just multiply that up and it's a significant number of people.
And what are the effects of missing dental treatment when problems are small? Because often we just go for like a routine checkup. Is it really that bad if we miss it for a year?
For some people, probably not. But other people, problems quickly develop into toothache. You can develop serious gum disease, infections. But I think the big concern is the oral cancer that is potentially missed at the routine screenings that we carry out for so many.
And so what about the backlog? Because now, people are coming back. You've all got PPE to keep you safer. When can we expect services to return to normal? I mean, what are waiting lists like?
Waiting lists are still very, very significant. Due to the infection control procedures and social distancing, we're operating at about a quarter to a third of our normal capacity. So that, we think, is keeping pace with the development of immediate problems. We think the backlog is still there in some areas, so we're still working through that. But as for routine checkups, we're still cancelling those, unfortunately, and looking to book them into next year. Patients will receive screening and checkups if they come in, but we're really directing our resources and capacity to significant problems still at the moment.
Of course, so you're dealing with the sort of more emergency type situations first, but we're also hearing from health campaigners that we should watch out about the oral health of children, and that's really something to look out for. Indeed.
We see families of together normally, and the children are screened for all the normal oral health problems, but it also is a chance to impart our preventative messages, and we've been missing out on that. We've not been able to advise on toothbrushing and diet for them, and of course the lockdown has been bad for children's diets because they've been stuck at home and probably eating the wrong things. So we perceive there will have been a slight deterioration there, and we need to get back on that preventative message.
That's an interesting point you make, actually, because I know from our own guilty pleasures at home, there was a lot of baking going on during COVID. We'd have more movie nights and sort of sit with the kids and say, let's have some crisps or something like that. Do you think that has accelerated deterioration in these few months, if you like, where things were locked down?
I think it'll be very difficult to think it hasn't. I mean, it's not an easy thing to prove either way, but definitely the more sugar you consume, the more frequently, the more dental problems you tend to get.
So what would your advice be if, on the one hand, we should get to the dentist, on the other hand, there are these massively long waiting lists? What's your message to all of us?
Well, I think oral hygiene is really important. Keep that sugar down to a minimum. Brushing twice a day, good quality toothpaste for 2 minutes. And I think my big message would be, if you have a soreness in your mouth, a lump, and also a swelling that isn't resolving within 2 or 3 weeks, please make an appointment, telephone your dentist. They will be happy to see you as an emergency. And if we can get back on screening for those oral cancers again, that's one of our first aims.
Mick Armstrong, thank you so much, and thank you for the warning. Mick Armstrong, Chair of the British Dental Association and also General Dental Practitioner, reminding us that while we're focused and concerned, understandably, about the developments of COVID-19, we shouldn't close our eyes to other health issues at all. Now, I can turn now to Simon. We talked earlier about the government's decision to keep the ban on evictions in England and Wales in place for another month, so until the 20th of September. Simon texted in from Devon, and we have him on the line now. Simon, you're a landlord.
That's right, Kathy. I am.
And
go on. Sorry. Go ahead, please.
No, go ahead. No, you. We want to hear from you.
Look, I text in because I'm in a situation where look, it's quite a long story, and I'll keep it as simple as I can. But I was approached by the county council reference taking in a guy who was leaving care, which I did, and he moved into a property I have, a 1-bedroom place, which I have in December, I think, last year. Since then, he's effectively taken the house apart, wrecked it, upset all the neighbours. He has parties in the street. He's not paid his rent. He owes me, although he gets housing benefit, so he's getting his rent paid by the taxpayer, but that's not coming on. So I'm in a situation where the property costs me £500 a month, which I'm paying, and I've got no income from it. And I just, if somebody knows what I should do about it, then please help me, because I'm at a loss.
Well, Simon, I'm sure there'll be lots of people listening who will have sympathy for this particular case. If you're right in what you're alleging, that your tenant actually has the money to pay the rent but isn't paying the rent, and is being a difficult tenant and disturbing neighbours. But we were looking at the wider question of landlords who want their rent and people who've lost their jobs because of COVID-19, so through no fault of their own, who have no money to pay the rent and are frightened of being evicted. Let me just read you a text that we got from Geraldine in Oxford. The rental market is an outrageous system. This is unearned money by landlords. I've no sympathy for them having to put up with a few months without this. It would not be hard to request mortgage statements and an agreement that this amount should be paid only. This pandemic has shown the utter mess of the housing market. What do you think of that?
Why would it be unearned money?
Well, I guess she's suggesting that it's a property that you own, but you're not actually working for it.
Well, no, but I mean, look, firstly, nobody knows my situation. It could be my pension fund. Perhaps I'd decided to put my pension fund into a house. So perhaps I'd worked all my life and I'd taken that money and I'd put it into a pension. Instead of buying an annuity, I'd put it into a pension, bought a house to give me an income in retirement.
Simon,
why is it unearned income? I don't understand that.
Thank you, Simon from Devon. So many points, 85058 on the housing market. Whether people should be evicted if they've lost their job because of COVID-19, how to help them, and landlords who may rely on on that income, rental income, to pay their own bills. Now it's time for the news.
not a game, it's a rich thing.
you.